In the grand archives of the Celestial Consortium, nestled between fairy tales and children's stories, lay the dusty files marked Extinct Species Mythological Classification. Among these forgotten records was an entry that had become the source of countless bedtime stories across the galaxy. Homo sapiens, the Terran legends. Professor Yixara of the Consortium's Xenoarchaeology Department had dedicated her career to debunking such myths. The human stories, she insisted during her lectures, were nothing more than primitive psychological constructs, cautionary tales about a species that supposedly conquered their homeworld through pure stubbornness and had somehow weaponized concepts like loyalty and never giving up. Preposterous, she would tell her students, her tentacles writhing with academic certainty. No species could survive the transition from planetary to galactic civilization with such irrational behavioral patterns. The students always laughed, especially at the most ridiculous claims, that humans could survive on worlds that would kill other species, that they formed emotional bonds so strong they would die for strangers, and that they had once fought a war that lasted over a century, simply because neither side would admit defeat. Fantasy, all of it. That was before the day the myths walked out of legend and into reality. Captain Mordock, of the Consortium Patrol Vessel Seeker's Pride, was conducting a routine survey of the abandoned Sigma Draconis system when his sensors detected something that shouldn't exist. The system had been empty for millennia, just dead worlds, orbiting a dying star, perfect for mining operations once the Consortium got around to it. Captain, his navigation officer Keeler reported, her voice tight with confusion. I'm detecting massive displacement signatures throughout the system. Configuration unknown. Mordock's primary eyes focused on the tactical display, while his secondary eyes monitored his crew's reactions. 23 years in space had taught him to trust his instincts, and right now, those instincts were screaming danger. Show me. The holographic display materialized, and Mordock felt his breathing apparatus seize up. Emerging from hyperspace, in perfect synchronization, were ships that belonged in mythology texts, not in the vacuum of real space. They were exactly as the ancient stories described, angular, predatory vessels that looked like they had been forged in warfare and tempered in blood. Keeltha, he whispered, access the mythological archives. Cross-reference these configurations with the Terran legends. His officer's appendages moved frantically across her console, and when the results appeared, the bridge fell silent. Match after match appeared on screen: weapon placements, hull configurations, energy signatures that corresponded perfectly with the fictional human fleet compositions described in children's stories. Sir, Keeltha's voice cracked. Preliminary count indicates approximately 75,000 vessels. And more are arriving. 75,000. The entire Consortium Deep Space Fleet numbered barely 8,000 ships. The implications hit Mordock like a physical blow. If these were truly the mythical humans, they had returned with enough firepower to challenge every known civilization simultaneously. A communication beacon activated across all frequencies, broadcasting in perfect galactic standard. The voice that emerged was crisp, professional, and utterly terrifying in its calm certainty. This is Fleet Admiral Marcus Rodriguez of the Terran Federation. To all vessels in this system, you are now in human-controlled space. State your intentions or prepare to be boarded. Mordock's mandibles clicked nervously as he opened a channel. This is Captain Mordock of the Celestial Consortium. We were under the impression that humans were, that your species was
extinct. The human's voice carried what Mordock's translation software identified as amusement. We get that a lot. Permission to come aboard, Captain. I think it's time we had a conversation. Minutes later, Mordock found himself face to face with a creature that had stepped directly out of galactic folklore. Admiral Rodriguez was smaller than expected but carried himself with the confidence of a being who had never doubted his right to exist in a hostile universe. 2 arms, 2 legs, 2 eyes. The simplicity was somehow more unnerving than any exotic alien physiology. "You look confused, Captain," Rodriguez observed, settling into a chair that seemed far too small for the presence he commanded. "Let me guess, you thought we were fairy tales." "The archives," Mordak began, then stopped, unsure how to continue. "The archives are exactly what we wanted them to be." Rodriguez smiled, and Mordak realized that humans had somehow weaponized facial expressions. "Do you know what the greatest advantage in warfare is, Captain? It's not superior firepower or advanced technology. It's being underestimated by your enemies." The implications crashed over Mordak like a tidal wave. You deliberately allowed yourselves to be classified as myths? For 800 years we've been watching, learning. The Consortium's expansion policies, the Valdoran Empire's pacification programs, the hegemony slave markets, we've seen it all. And we've been preparing. Rodriguez gestured toward the viewscreen, where the massive human fleet hung in space like a promise of retribution. "Every species in this galaxy has heard the stories, Captain. Humans who never give up. Humans who turn their own mortality into a weapon. Humans who form bonds so strong they'll fight impossible odds for complete strangers." His eyes hardened. "The stories weren't myths, Captain. They were warnings." Mordak's translation software struggled with the humans' next words, flagging them as containing emotional concepts that had no direct equivalent in galactic standard. "For 8 centuries, we've watched civilizations rise and fall, watched species destroy each other over resources and territory and pride. We've seen enough, Captain. It's time for something different." What do you want?" Rodriguez stood, and despite his relatively small stature, he seemed to fill the room. "We want to offer every species in this galaxy something they've never had before. A choice. Join us in building something better or—" He paused, looking out at the Armada that stretched beyond visual range. "Well, the myths were very clear about what happens to those who threaten what humans choose to protect." Mordak realized he was witnessing the end of one age and the beginning of another. The galaxy had spent millennia operating under the assumption that the strong would always prey upon the weak, that expansion meant conquest, that might made right. But humans, it seemed, had a different philosophy entirely. "Captain," Rodriguez said softly, "I want you to return to Consortium space and deliver a message. Tell them that the myths have awakened. Tell them that humanity remembers every world that was destroyed, every species that was enslaved, every child that died because the strong decided the weak didn't matter." Mordak nodded numbly, his mind reeling with the implications. "And Captain," Rodriguez's voice carried the weight of 800 years of preparation. "Tell them that this time, the humans brought friends." As Mordak's ship departed the Sigma Draconis system, he couldn't help but look back at the human armada. The myths had returned, and they had brought with them something the galaxy had never seen before: hope backed by overwhelming force. For the first time in centuries, the strong had reason to be afraid, and the weak had reason to believe.